I felt the eyes on me before I even heard the footsteps. The same look I got every time I stepped into a store, every time I walked down the wrong street, every time someone saw me and assumed the worst. But this time, it wasn't just some random person clutching their purse or crossing the street. This time, it was a cop. I was standing outside a convenience store on the south side, waiting for the bus. My backpack was slung over one shoulder, my hands tucked into my hoodie against the wind. I hadn't even gone inside the store. But that didn't matter, did it? Hey, you! A voice called. Sharp, authoritative. I turned and saw him. A white cop, maybe mid-40s, stocky build, short-cropped blonde hair under his navy blue cap. His name tag read Reynolds. His hand was already resting on his belt, near his holster. "What's in the bag?" he asked. I frowned, glancing at my backpack. "Books," I said. "School stuff." Reynolds' gaze flicked past me toward the store, then back. "Manager says a kid in a hoodie stole something just now. You fit the description." I let out a breath through my nose. Same old story. "I didn't steal anything," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Didn't even go inside." "That so?" he asked, taking a step closer. I nodded. "That's so." The bus was still a few minutes away. Running wouldn't do anything but make me look guilty. Getting angry wouldn't help either. I had to play it smart. I lifted my hands slowly, palms out. "You can check my bag if you want," I said. That threw him off. His eyes narrowed, like he was expecting me to argue, to protest, to give him a reason to escalate. Instead, I unzipped my backpack and held it open. Inside, the only things were a couple of beat-up textbooks, a notebook, and a white envelope. The letter peeked out just enough of the logo to be visible. University of Illinois. Reynolds hesitated. A flicker of something crossed his face, but he hit it quick. "You from around here?" he asked, voice a little less sharp now. "Yeah," I said. "Been homeless for a while, but I just got into college." The words tasted bitter in my mouth. I didn't owe him an explanation, but maybe, just maybe, it would make him think twice before treating the next kid like this. A voice from the sidewalk cut through the air. I got all that on camera. I turned my head slightly. A woman stood a few feet away, phone raised, probably live streaming. Reynolds' jaw tightened. The whole vibe shifted. And just like that, I knew this wasn't over. I could see it in his face. The way his eyes flicked to the phone, the way his jaw locked up like he was biting down on a curse. He knew he was being watched. And that changed everything. Reynolds cleared his throat, adjusting the grip on his belt. "Just doing my job," he muttered, but it sounded weaker now. Like even he didn't believe it. The woman with the phone stepped closer. Late 30s, maybe early 40s, with a red beanie pulled low over tight curls. Her coat was worn, but she stood like she had nothing to lose. "Yeah," she said. "And what part of your job is stopping a kid for no reason?" Reynolds turned to her, and for a second, I thought he might say something slick, maybe even threaten her. But then he glanced at the screen. Probably saw the comments rolling in, the little red live icon blinking at the top. He exhaled sharply through his nose. I kept my hands up, my bag still open. The letter from you of I was right there, in plain sight. If he had any sense, he'd let this go. "You can put your hands down," Reynolds said after a beat, stepping back. I did, slow and deliberate. Zipped up my bag. Didn't break eye contact. "You're free to go," he added, like he was doing me a favor. Was I ever not? I asked. His nostrils flared, but he didn't answer. He just turned and walked back toward his squad car, stiff-backed and silent. The woman with the phone kept it pointed at him the whole way. As soon as he was out of earshot, she lowered the phone and looked at me. "You okay, baby?" I nodded. "Yeah, thanks for that." She smiled, but there was sadness behind it. Wish I could say it's the first time I've had to do that. The bus finally rumbled up to the curb. I glanced at it, then back at her. "What's your name?" "Danielle," she said. "And you?" "Jamal." She gave me a nod, like she was locking that name away. "You stay safe, Jamal." I stepped onto the bus, found a seat near the back, and leaned against the window. My heart was still racing, but I kept my face blank, calm. Wouldn't do any good to let people see me rattled. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text from my friend Malik. "Bro, you're all over Twitter. That cop tried to frame you?" I frowned, thumb hovering over the screen. How did Malik know about that already? Then another message popped up. "Yo, check this out. You're going viral." I opened the link. And there it was, the video Danielle had streamed. Thousands of views already. Comments flooding in. People arguing, taking sides. Some furious at the cop. Others twisting the story, saying I must have done something to deserve it. I exhaled slowly, gripping my phone tight. This wasn't just a moment anymore. This was something bigger. By the time I got to the shelter that night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Mentions, tags, texts from people I hadn't heard from in years. Malik wasn't lying. I was everywhere. I sat on my bunk, scrolling through the comments under the video. The numbers kept climbing. 50,000 views. 75. Over 100,000 now. Some people were on my side. This is what racial profiling looks like. Kid was just waiting for a bus. He even let the cop check his bag, and dude still looked mad he couldn't arrest him. SMH. But others bet he stole something before the video started. If he's homeless, why does he have a phone? Thinking face. Oh, wow. Another fake victim story. Yawn. I clenched my jaw and locked my screen. This was what always happened. No matter how clear the proof was, no matter how obvious the truth, there'd always be people bending over backward to act like it wasn't real. Yo, Jamal. I looked up. Malik stood at the edge of my bunk, holding his own phone out. He was grinning. You seen this yet? He asked. I raised an eyebrow. Seen what? He shoved the phone in my face. It was another tweet, but this one was different. Verified account. Some activist with 500,000 followers. This is why we need to talk about racial profiling and youth homelessness. This young man deserves better. Who knows how many times this happens without cameras. Attached was a screenshot of my college acceptance letter, the one that had been peeking out of my backpack in the video. I sat up straighter. Where did they get that? Man, people zoomed in on the footage, Malik said. You got a whole movement behind you now. Hashtag Justice for Jamal is trending. I blinked. That was unreal. Before I could even process it, another notification popped up. Then another. Jamal, I run a nonprofit for homeless youth. We'd love to connect. Hey, I'm a journalist. Can we talk? You have a Cash App? People want to help. I rubbed my face with both hands, trying to wrap my head around it. 12 hours ago, I was just another invisible kid in this city. Now, people knew my name. You good? Malik asked, watching me. I let out a breath. I didn't know, man. This is wild. Wild good, though, right? I wasn't sure how to answer that. It felt good knowing people had my back. But I also knew how the internet worked. This could blow up in my favor, or turn on me just as fast. And if I was feeling the heat, I knew Reynolds was too. Whatever happened next, he wouldn't take it lying down. By the next morning, I was officially in the storm. The video had passed 500,000 views overnight. News outlets were picking it up now, running stories with headlines like, Chicago teen falsely accused. Viral video sparks debate on racial profiling. Homeless student harassed by police officer. Community outraged. People I'd never met were saying my name on TV, on radio shows, on podcasts. My social media was flooded. Some folks were calling me a symbol of resilience. Others, well, they had different opinions. The first death threat showed up around noon. You got that cop in trouble? Better watch your back. I stared at the message for a second, then locked my phone. Not the first time someone had threatened me. Just the first time the whole world was watching when it happened. Malik and I were sitting outside a cafe, sharing a bag of chips. He glanced at me. You seen what's happening with Reynolds? I shook my head. What now? Malik tapped his phone and turned the screen toward me. A news article. CPD officer on leave following viral video incident. I exhaled. Damn. Yeah, Malik said. And look at this. He scrolled down. They're digging into his record. Turns out this ain't even his first racial profiling complaint. He's got 3. I leaned back. 3. Malik nodded. City never did anything about it. But now, people are calling for him to get fired. I didn't know how to feel about that. Part of me wanted to be glad. The man had tried to ruin my life over nothing. Shouldn't he have to face some kind of consequence? But another part of me, I knew what happened when people like him felt cornered. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, a new notification popped up. Voicemail from unknown number. I hesitated, then pressed play. Static at first, then a low, measured voice. You think you won? A pause. Watch yourself, kid. The city doesn't care about you. The message ended. A slow chill crept up my spine. I didn't need to see a name to know who it was. Reynolds wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. By the time the sun set, I knew something was coming. I could feel it. The city had that tension in the air, the kind that made people walk a little faster, look over their shoulders a little more. The news was still buzzing with my name. Protests were being planned, and Reynolds was officially on paid leave. But none of that made me feel safe. Especially not after that voicemail. I kept it to myself at first. Malik would freak if I told him, and I didn't want him worrying. But when we left the shelter to grab food, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. A police car, parked across the street. Not moving, not flashing its lights, just watching. I tried to act normal, but Malik caught me glancing at it. "You good?" "Yeah," I said, shoving my hands in my hoodie. "Fine." He followed my gaze and frowned. "Man, is that—" "I don't know. I cut in. Let's just get this food and go back." We grabbed some burgers from a spot down the block, but the whole time, my skin prickled. I kept looking over my shoulder. And sure enough, the squad car was still there, waiting. We turned the corner toward the shelter, and that's when I saw them. 2 officers. Not Reynolds. Different guys. Standing outside the shelter entrance, talking to the staff. Malik muttered under his breath. "Hell no." I gritted my teeth. We had 2 choices. Walk past like nothing was wrong, or turn around and look suspicious. Neither option was good. I kept my pace steady, gripping my backpack strap. But as soon as we got within 10 feet, one of the cops turned. Jamal Carter? I stopped cold. Malik tensed beside me. The officer stepped forward, pulling something out of his pocket. A badge. "We need to ask you a few questions." I forced myself to keep my voice calm. "About what?" The second cop, a younger guy, maybe late 20s, spoke up. "There was a robbery a few blocks from here an hour ago. Witness says the suspect matches your description." I felt the air drain from my lungs. Malik let out a sharp laugh. "You gotta be kidding me." The first cop stayed expressionless. "We just need you to come down to the station." I shook my head. "I didn't rob anybody. I've been with him all day," I said, jerking my chin toward Malik. "And there are cameras all over the street. You can check them." The younger cop sighed like this was all routine. "Look, kid, if you're innocent, you got nothing to worry about. Just cooperate." Right, because that had worked out so well last time. My stomach twisted. This wasn't random. This wasn't just bad luck. This was Reynolds. And he wasn't just watching anymore. He was making his move. I knew better than to run. Running would be playing right into their hands. So I squared my shoulders, looked the cop dead in the eye, and said, "I want a lawyer." Malik sucked in a breath beside me. The older cop's face stayed blank, but his jaw tightened just enough to let me know he didn't like that answer. The younger one gave me a tight-lipped smile, the kind that wasn't friendly. "That's your right." He nodded at his partner. "Cuff him." I stiffened as the cold steel snapped around my wrists. People on the sidewalk slowed down, watching. A couple pulled out their phones, but no one stepped in. They never did. Malik's voice cut through the air. "This is some straight-up bull." "Sir, step back," the older cop warned. "Man, this is crazy. He didn't do anything." Malik protested, eyes flashing. I shook my head, a silent warning for him to let it go. No point in both of us going down. The cops led me to the squad car, stuffing me in the back. Through the window, I saw Malik fumble with his phone, his face tight with anger. At least someone would be watching. The ride to the station was silent, except for the sound of my heartbeat hammering in my ears. I ran through every possibility in my head. Could they plan something on me? Would they try to lose evidence proving I was innocent? Would they just keep me locked up for as long as they legally could, hoping the story died down? Whatever they had planned, I knew one thing. This wasn't about justice. This was about shutting me up. At the station, they processed me fast, like they'd been expecting me. Mugshot, fingerprints, the whole 9 yards. Then they dumped me in an interrogation room. No lawyer, no phone call, just me, a metal table, and the clock ticking on the wall. I wasn't sure how long I sat there before the door finally opened. But when it did, I wasn't surprised at who walked in. Reynolds. He wasn't in uniform this time, just a plain button-up. Sleeves rolled to his elbows. He shut the door behind him and leaned against it, arms crossed. "You know," he said, voice low, I was willing to let that little video thing blow over. I didn't say a word. But then people started digging into my record. Protests, petitions. Suddenly, I'm the bad guy, all because some punk kid wanted to play victim. He stepped closer, resting his hands on the table. His eyes locked onto mine, cold and steady. Thing is, Jamal, the city moves on real fast. People forget. But you, his lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. You're the kind of problem that needs solving. I clenched my fists under the table. I didn't rob anybody. Reynolds shrugged. Don't matter. A witness put you at the scene. Witness or someone you told a lie? His smile widened. Now, that's a serious accusation. He straightened up, fixing his cuffs. But I wouldn't worry too much. Couple days in holding, maybe a few months fighting bogus charges. By the time you get out, no one's gonna remember your little 15 minutes of fame. I stared at him, heart pounding. This wasn't just about me. This was about sending a message, making sure the next kid knew not to step out of line. And that's when I realized something. He thought he had me. Thought I was just some dumb kid who didn't know how to fight back. He didn't realize the fight had already started. I leaned back in my chair, tilting my head. You really think nobody's gonna notice I'm gone? Reynolds chuckled. People disappear every day in this city. I smiled. Yeah, but not people with a viral hashtag. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt. I nodded at the two-way mirror. Bet your phone's been blowing up, huh? Reporters, activists, lawyers. Hell, probably the mayor's office, too. 'Cause let's be real, Reynolds. You snatched me up on some bogus charge, and this whole thing explodes even bigger. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. You know what happens when things get too messy? Silence stretched between us. I didn't break eye contact. They cut loose ends, I said. Reynolds' jaw flexed. I sat back, feeling my heartbeat slow. So go ahead, try to make me disappear. I gave a small shrug. But if you do, better make sure you're not next. A muscle in his cheek twitched. He stared at me for a long moment, then exhaled through his nose and turned for the door. He didn't look back as he walked out. I knew right then I'd won. Maybe not the war, but this round? Checkmate. If this story resonated with you, share it with those who need to hear it. Let's start conversations that matter, and that will lead to change. Subscribe to our channel for more stories like this that challenge us, inspire us, and remind us of what we are capable of when we stand up for what is right.